I met Daniel in college. He was confident, magnetic, the kind of guy who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I was studying psychology. He was in engineering. We were opposites in all the right ways. So I thought. He proposed. Under a street lamp in the rain, cliché and movie-like. But back then, it felt like magic. We married 3 years later, built a modest life. I became a school counselor. He climbed steadily through the ranks at a construction firm. We bought a small home, planted a garden, made Saturday pancakes a ritual. From the outside, we looked like that couple holiday cards, always on time, always smiling, always hand in hand at community events. But inside that picture-perfect frame, something was cracking. The change, it didn't happen overnight. It was slow, quiet, almost invisible. Daniel started working late. At first I understood deadlines, promotions, stress, but then it became frequent to frequent. The man who once hated business trips now looked forward to them. He stopped complaining about bad hotel pillows and stale coffee. He stopped kissing me on the forehead in the mornings. Our bedtime talks, once full of silly jokes and late-night dreams, vanished. We talked less, touched less, laughed less. I blamed stress. I blamed routine. I blamed myself. I doubled down. Bought his favorite pastries. Slipped notes into his briefcase. Planned surprise date nights. He responded with distracted nods, empty words. And a distance I couldn't bridge, but still I never thought he'd be unfaithful until the email. The email lit was a regular Wednesday. He was in the shower. His phone was on the kitchen counter locked, just like always. I wish I could say I had some noble reason for checking. But I didn't. It was instinct. A quiet nudge in my gut. There were no texts, but his email. Subject line, last weekend. It was from someone named Claire. The message wasn't graphic. That would have almost been easier. No, it was worse. It was intimate. Inside jokes. I miss your voice. When can I see you again? Words meant for me once. Now stolen? I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just stood there, staring at that screen, feeling the air go cold. Then I walked upstairs, looked at myself in the mirror, and waited to see a shattered woman. But I didn't see that. I saw calm, controlled, focused. Something inside me hardened. The unraveling, I didn't confront him. Not right away. I became the perfect actress, smiling, cooking, asking about his day while watching, listening, unraveling him thread by thread. Every lie was a puzzle piece. I wanted the whole picture. I created a burner email and wrote to Claire, pretending to be someone who worked with Daniel. I told her I overheard him talking about her and was just curious. She replied almost eagerly. Within days, I knew everything. They met during one of his trips. She was a graphic designer, single, thought he was too. He'd told her I was just a roommate, someone going through a divorce. 12 years together erased like a typo in a text message. Our wedding, our traditions. Our life gone. That was when I made a decision, not to beg, not to rage, but to take back my power. With grace. The plan, revenge, if it was going to happen, wouldn't be a scene. It would be strategy, calm, precise. Measure. I began documenting everything: dates, lies, receipts. I met with a lawyer, quietly transferred joint funds into protected accounts, secured my name on the house, climbed up my support network. I told no one, not even my sister. I wanted silence to be my weapon. And once everything was in place, I waited. Until one Sunday afternoon. As Daniel was grilling in the backyard, beer in hand, smiling like nothing was wrong, I told him, not with a scream, not with a slap, just, I know about Claire. He froze. What followed was a mess of excuses, stress, loneliness. He said he didn't know why he did it, that it didn't mean anything. Hey, that we still meant everything. I didn't argue. I just said, you don't get to destroy someone's world and expect applause for admitting it. Then I walked away. The aftermath: I filed for divorce 2 days later. No theatrics, no second chances. Claire found out the truth soon after. She never contacted me, but I know from a mutual friend she was devastated. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Daniel tried to win me back. Letters, flowers, messages full of regret. But all I saw was a man who confused charm with character. A man who thought my silence was weakness. He was wrong. The rebirth 6 months later, I'm not the same Maya. I moved into a smaller home, cut my hair short, took a solo trip to Portugal, laughed with strangers, danced in a thunderstorm. I am not broken. I am reborn. I used to be the gentle wife who kept the peace at all costs. Now I am the woman who chose herself. Not out of vengeance, out of clarity. Because sometimes the quietest revenge is living the life they never imagined you could without them. And I've only just begun. I wasn't going to lose my self-respect trying to see him. In some dramatic fashion, I would make him feel the absence of what he took for granted I would take back. Their avenge power, he thought. I didn't have. The first thing I did was visit a lawyer quietly off course. I didn't want him to know. I was aware the lawyer was calm, methodical, almost seemed impressed by how composed I was. We reviewed our finances. Most of the assets were in both our names. There were no children, which Medethi. Separation cleaner, at least legal Linux. I began gathering evidence, not just of the affair, but of all his falsehoods, his secret credit card, the trips heckered his business when he was really on getaways with Claire. Every screenshot and document was saved in a folder named Restoration. Then I started DDHing emotionally. I stopped seeking his attention. I no longer tried to make him talk. I let him believe I was just tired or busy, and he bought it, too comfortable in his double life. Doesn't expect anything what he didn't know. Waste that while he was chasing another woman. I was finding a misselfagain. I enrolled in a weekend course on photography, something I had always wanted to do. I reconnected with old friends he had pushed away over the years. I started journaling every night, not about him, but about me, my dreams, my disappointments, my rediscovery. Off strength, the real revenge wasn't going to be explosive. It was going to be benevolent, sharp, and undeniable. He thought was the one writing the story of our rending, but I was holding the pen. Now Daniel remained completely unaware that was his first mistokisaming. I was still blind to his least second mistake. Was underestimating kind of woman I had become. I wasn't the same person who used to cry insolence when he ignored me. I had grown quieter, yes, but not out of weakness. I had become strategic for weeks. I turning point continued. The performance, he'd come home and tell me about his fake meetings and he'd nod, preparing dinner as if nothing had changed. He occasionally brought me gifts, souvenirs from business trips, and he would thank him sweetly, knowing full well they were guilt offerings, rapid on deception. I wasn't angry anymore. Notan, the screaming out of control way people expect. My anger had hardened into purpose. The turning point came one afternoon when I received a call from my lawyer. She told me everything was red eyes. Paperwork was drafted, that documentation of his affair was airtighter, joint assets had been reviewed, and I had taken steps to quietly secure my own accounts. I had transferred my Salinto, private bank. I had also paused contributions to our shared savings without him noticing. I wasn't just preparing to leave him, I was preparing to make sure he didn't leave unscathed. But I wasn't ready to file, not yet, Beck. I wanted him to see what it felt like to be uncertain, to question everything. I wanted him to feel, even if briefly, the dread he had caused me for months. So I did something he never expected. I changed. I began dressing differently, stylish but effortless, is mild more, but not at him. I took Kels in the other room and came home latterthon. Usual. I laughed at texts and refused to explain. At first he didn't notice, but gradually I could feel the shift. He started asking me questions. Sure. Were you today? Who are you talking? Losing control to? I gave vague answers, just like Q's too, for the first time in months. Q was paying attention, but for all throwing reasons, not because he loved Maybew, because he was losing control. Q'd say things like, "You've been different lately." And I'd shrug, maybe I just got tired of waiting. His eyes would flicker with confusion, but I never gave him more A. Even asked me one night out off no hair. Are you seeing someone? He smiled and said, would it matter if I was? He looked stunned, and for a moment I saw fear in him, the same fear I had lived with when I discovered Claire Habagan changing his behavior after Thav started coming home. Early he offered to cook. He asked if I wanted to take a weekend trip. Just the two of us, it would have been touching, maybe even redemptive if I didn't already know that truth. I declined politely, told him I had finding joy, game plans with friends, and I wasn't pretending to be happy. I was actually finding joy again. I spent time with people who valued me. I explored new parts of myself that had long been buried beneath the role of Daniel's wife. More I healed, the clearer everything became. He had already left our marriage in every way, but physically, I was simply giving him a taste of that same emptiness. I wasn't going to explode into rage or tears. I wanted him to feel Theslo's sting of realization the moment stood that the life he took for granted was slipping through his finger sand. It came eventually one night. Came home a little late carrying my camera from a photography meetup. He was sat on the couch, looking shaken. I hadn't seen him look that unsteady in years. Can we talk? He asked. I sat down. Can we talk all calmly? Feel like I don't know what's going on anymore. He said, you're always out. You didn't seem here. I nodded. It's strange, isn't it, to feel like the person you live with is slipping away. He paused, unsure how to respond. I just don't want to lose you, he added. I looked at him, really looked for the first time in months. He was vulnerable, but not because I realized what he'd done, because hesitated that I was becoming unreachable. I was Daniel. I said softly, do you realize think you still have me? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I leaned in just slightly. You've had someone else for months. Do you really expect me to Beatty? Same person? Waiting at home, playing the role of the faithful wife, while you disappear into someone else's arms. His face turned pale. Maya. I don't know what Yura went silent talking about. I smiled. Please. I've seen the emails. I know about Claire. All of I went silent. I stood up and walked toward the hallway. You should sleep in the guest room tonight. I think it's time to start getting used to a different arrangement. He didn't follow me, hadn't say another word, and in that silence, I felt more powerful than I ever had. More the next day, I emailed Clara, told her the truth, everything. I wasn't cruel. I told her I wasn't angry at her. She was lied to as much as I was. I attached a photo of our wedding, a copy of our marriage license, and a simple line, you deserve to know who he realized. She replied 2 days later, apologizing, said she had already cut with him. Thatch had no idea I even existed. That Shohas disgusted in Daniel. He tried to win me. He tried to win me back. He tried to change. He wrote me, cooked dinners, took off from work, but I didn't fall for it because a person he was trying to become was a version I had needed years ago. Not Theon, who conveniently appeared when his game fell apart. I didn't file for divorce immediately. No, I waited. On Tyler's anniversary, on the morning of our 12th wedding anniversary, I handed him's envelope while we sat at the breakfast table. He looked hopeful, expecting a card, maybe an olive branch instead. He found signed divorce papers, stared at them in disbelief. You lied to me, you used me, you discarded me. I said I gave you 12 years, I'm giving myself the rest. He begged. He wept. He the final act promised. But it was too late. Redemption wasn't on the menu anymore. Closure wasn't. Then came the final act. The Hauser house was legally mine in the division. But I told him I didn't want it instead. I arranged to sell it. I moved into a cozy apartment downtown, closer to my photography studio, and used part of the money to start a project. I had always dreamed about a mental health nonprofit for women recovering from betrayal and emotional abuse. I didn't just walk away from Daniel. I built something out of thorns. It was the kind of revenge I never saw coming. Not public, not full, just a woman rising where he expected her to break, and I wasn't done rising. People often ask if revenge is ever really satisfying, if walking away from some man who wronged you actually brings peace, and while I can't speak for Varion. I can tell you this, when I left Daniel behind, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt whole. That was my revenge, not ruining him, not exposing him, just refusing to carry his betrayal any longer. It took time, of course. No one recovers from 12 years of emotional erosion overnight, even after I moved Vidento, my new place. I had nights where the silence crept. In like fog nights where I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I had missed something, the whole thing, if I had missed something. Or if I could have saved us by doing something differently, but the truth always brought me back the truth thought I had loved fully. Given generous land, remained loyal until the very end, and the other truth that he didn't saw Daniel. A few times after the divorce was finalized, we still had to sort through a few last details documents. Old storage items and accounts that needed classing looked different, not just in appearance, but in presence. The arrogance was gone. The easy charm had been replaced by an awkward, almost pitiful plotness. He always looked like he wanted to say more, but never did at first. I wondered if I should. Here Jaime let him explain or apologize a priori, but then I realized something about closure didn't have to come from his words. It had already come from me actions one day. He stopped by to drop off a box of old books. I met him outside his building. He handed me the box and said, "You look happy." I nodded. He hesitated. "I just want to say," interrupted him Daniel, "I wish you peace truly, but I don't need anything from you anymore. Not answers, not apologies, just distance." He nodded, and that was the last time I saw him. Life didn't magical Lebo. Perfect after that, but it became a mean again. I poured myself into non-profit, working with women who had walked through similar storms. Every time I heard their stories, I recognized this of my self-confused hurt, Asha Medend, every time I reminded them. Betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. Healing is not weakness, it is power. My photography took off. In unexpected ways, too, I began exhibiting me work, mostly portraits of women in authentic moments. Grief, Joy, Survival Own photo series I did was titled After the Storm, featuring women who had rebuilt their lives after heartbreak. It was deeply personal, and the response was overwhelming. The gallery was packed on the response opening night. I stood there among strangers, my art on the walls. My voice seen the frames and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride, not in who used to be or who I had loved, but in who we had become. People started to ask me to speak at events, workshops, and conferences, not because I was some therapist or guru, but because I had lived through something painful and didn't let it define me. My story wasn't unique, but my response to it was I didn't fight fire with fire. I fought betrayal with clarity, lies with truth, abandonment with self-respect. I've got messages from women all over the country, some even from abroad, messages that said things like, "Your story gave me courage," or "I finally left after years off being afraid." And every time I read one of those, I remembered the woman used to be standing in the kitchen reading that email from Claire, heart racing, future crumbling, and I wanted to reach back in time and hug her, tell her this isn't the end, it's the start of something better. I never dated King quickly. I took my time. I went to therapy, learned how to love my own companion eventually. I met someone new, Samuel steady, honest, and though this isn't this story, I'll say this, I didn't need him to rescue me. I had already done that for myself. He simply walked beside men of our head, never behind sometimes. I think about Daniel, not with bitterness, but with detachment. He became a chapter I read, learned from, and outgrew. And for thought, I'm oddly thankful, because if he hadn't betrayed me, I might never have found the version of myself I love most, version that doesn't shrink. For Anyan, the version that trusts her instincts, the version that doesn't chase love, it builds. It protects it, and most importantly, demands it in return. If you're hearing this, and you're in that place, the place where nothing McKesson's, where betrayal feels like drowning, I want you to know something: you're stronger than you think. You don't have to explode. You don't have to fall apart. You can choose your response. You can walk away with your head held high and build a life so full, so honest, so meaningful that anyone who left you behind will feel the weight of what they left without you ever having. To lift a finger, that's the kind of revenge no one expects. And it's the kind that lasts no longer Daniel's wife. I am Maya. And I'm free. Thanks for listening. Bye.